vegetables first. We're going to listen to Senator Madrigal. Who I understand just walked into the room, so once again, thank you so much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Senator Sen.Madrigal.
I thank the E.J.A.P organizers for inviting me today. And I was informed very recently as the most recent entrant to the presidential race. I looked at the list of reactors. It was quite daunting as Professor Jokno was there in the list. And I didn't prepare a wish list of any sort. Since this was an economic forum, what I did was revisit certain economic principles and revisit or make a forensic not only on the Philippine scenario, but on why, I hate to say this in front of the Makati Business Club, why I believe our brand of capitalism has been failing since the 1940s, 1946 to be exact, when the parity agreement was passed by President Rojas. I've read Stiglitz for the fourth time. Till 4 yesterday, I was reading his book again. He was a professor, not of mine, but of one of my cousins in Princeton. And I will begin by saying that yes, a wish list is good and a vision is nice, but we cannot enforce economic vision without doing a forensic on what has gone wrong. The East Asian, Southeast Asian crisis of 1999, and less than 12 years from now, we have the crisis which started in Wall Street because of too much, I suppose, unfettered and unregulated Wall Street greed that even CMOs whose formulae are not understandable to the layman are being traded and continue to be traded in some fantastic values as only could be envisioned by the Federal Reserve in Wall Street. We talk about poverty. In its most basic sense, poverty can be defined as the disparity between the top rich and the top poor. And in that, the Philippines has been a consistent performer in the sense that in the past 20 years, disparity between rich and poor has been growing. I would like to read a quotation There is a quotation from the Forbes Asia. It said, in 2006, the net worth of just the 20 richest Filipinos, including close Arroyo allies, I will not mention their names, it would be indelicate for me if the Makati Business Club is here, was 801 billion pesos or $15.6 billion, which was the equivalent of the combined income for the year of the poorest 10.4 million Filipino families. So, in the past years of supposedly great economic outlook, the incidence of poverty in its barest definition has increased. And I will talk about a little later on why, when you look at it, even with the major remittances coming in, wage over price, has also decreased even with the overseas workers. I'm doing a slight forensic because my vision is so different, I suppose, from all the other candidates running, as for you to want to throw me out of this room after I finish. Like Stiglitz, I do not believe that capital markets and the free market is perfect. Since 1998, when I apprenticed politically with then Senator Arroyo, and then Vice President, I served her briefly for a year. I did not agree with the WTO bills that were being passed, the massive privatization, the IPPs, the legacy of the Ramos administration, which is now one of the biggest part of our national debt. I do not agree that, yes, globalization is a way of bringing cultures together, bringing visions together, but unfettered globalization, especially in underdeveloped countries such as the Philippines was in 1998, has resulted to the destruction of our agriculture and other things. I was together with Senator Ninoy in the Senate. We were the two pains in the you-know-where of Secretary Fabila in our vehement fight against E.J.A.P at the time. I wrote a 100-page dissent when I dissented on the E.J.A.P committee report, which to me unfortunately was passed. But then that is also a historical legacy because the Philippines has always been a semi-colonial the priorities of Philippine economy have always been semi-colonial. Sovereignty, economic, geopolitical sovereignty, unlike countries which have overtaken us, China, India, to an extent Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam. These are countries who did not allow the mafia of the IMF, World Bank, cheap loans, major indebtedness, even Singapore to a certain extent. They did not allow them to be bullied by their colonial masters. Instead, they grew at their own pace. What was sad for us in the E.J.A.P was that even things that we did not have to give away were given away by our negotiators. It was as if one day we woke up, they said yes to Japan, and then when we were questioning them during the lengthy Senate hearings, they didn't even know what they gave up. Unlike the reservations done in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, yes, they have their own version of E.J.A.P, but their negotiators made sure that they didn't give away the country. And to me, the E.J.A.P is a bilateral agreement, yes, but an unequal bilateral agreement because we have given Japanese rights in the Philippines that we cannot exercise in their own country. If a Philippine fishing boat were to fish in Japanese waters, they would end up impounded and in jail. Those are the inequities and the forensics I've been looking through in the Philippines scenario that I believe has given us a warped sense of priorities. Yes, there is major growth in the top 20 companies, top 1,000 corporations, but no, there is no developmental impact. I once had a professor, his name was Professor Fay, and he was responsible for the development model of the Taiwan. He was Taiwanese and went to MIT. The development model of the Taiwan, Japan, and South Korean miracle. To him, a country could not industrialize until there was a sufficient agricultural surplus. This is what happened to Japan and all those countries overtook us. While Marcos was opening us up to the IMF and destroying our agriculture with his crony monopolists,